Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back, because today I'm going to give you guys my ranking of all 8 Marvel Disney Plus shows, which starts all the way from WandaVision to the latest of the shows being She-Hulk Attorney at Law. It's going to be a couple of months until Secret Invasion comes out next spring, and now that She-Hulk is the last Marvel Disney Plus show of the year, I figured it's the perfect time for me to rank all of the shows we've gotten on Disney Plus so far. Before I give you guys my ranking, let me know down below in the comment section what's your ranking of the shows. Be respectful about it. There's going to be a lot of varying opinions on how we place the shows and what our favorite's going to be. So let me know down below in the comment section in a civil and a polite manner. And with that said, let's get started. Coming in at last place is none other than What If. This is the most disappointing of the Disney Plus shows for me. I was really looking forward to seeing a lot of these scenarios they were coming up with What If being, what if certain Marvel events played out differently, or things are a lot different than what they are originally. I really like the concept of it. There are certainly episodes here that I loved, like what if T'Challa is Star-Lord? What if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? What if Ultron won? There are some really good episodes here that I loved, and if the episodes were just as good as them, I would have placed the show higher up on the list. However, I do think the show did not fully capitalize on the concept as well. You had a lot of ideas I didn't care for as much, like what if Party Thor, what if Captain Carter, where you got some ideas there that are good, but the scenarios themselves weren't quite as interesting, or they didn't feel like they were as different as what we ended up getting. And some characters are definitely far better than others. And I watched the show and I thought week by week, they could have chosen some much more interesting scenarios rather than just swapping around just one thing. And it really disappoints me, because there is a lot of stuff about the show that could have been fantastic. I like the animation. I like some of the characters. I loved some of the episodes. But as a whole, I thought the show just did not deliver on the concept of What If well, and I really hope season 2 is a massive improvement. These next 2 shows are very interchangeable on my list. Every now and then I could see myself swapping these placements, but this is my placements of these 2 shows for the time being. So coming up next is She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Out of all of the Marvel Disney Plus shows, this is the most controversial and the most divisive and niche show of the bunch so far, and I am on the more positive side of the show. I don't think this is nearly as bad as everyone says it is. I love Tatiana Maslany as Jennifer Walters. She is so charming, charismatic, and fun. I love her dynamic with all these characters like Nikki and Pug and even Daredevil. She's so fun to watch, and I like that it feels very much like a TV show and not an extended movie. And so as the fact that it focuses on her trying to balance her identity as Jennifer Walters and She-Hulk, and so as how she deals with a lot of these episode of the week things, like she's trying to get Emil Blonsky on parole, she's got to deal with Titania and a wedding and whatnot. There's some fun things about the show that I liked, but I do feel like it really meanders in the middle after the 4th episode. I feel like I just wasn't quite sure what they were trying to do with the show. I do think the CGI is a little iffy at points, especially with how She-Hulk and some of the action sequences looked on the show. And I do feel like out of all the Marvel Disney Plus shows, this is one of the more inconsequential ones, which isn't a bad thing, but this is one of those shows where I wasn't entirely sure what they were going to do with She-Hulk by the end of the show, and what exactly will they do with her afterwards, unlike some of the other shows you will see higher up on the list. So it's a show that I liked. It's far better than people give it credit for, but it's not perfect. But it's a fun time. I enjoyed it. I hope we get a season 2 for this, because I really like Jennifer Walters, and I'm just really curious to see what's next for the character. So I really dug the show. I enjoyed it, but it's far from perfect. In 6th place is Hawkeye. This show, for the most part, was really fun. I love the Christmas setting. It's a lot more smaller scale than some of the other Disney Plus shows, which I really appreciated. And it's simple, it's fun, it's entertaining, and I love the dynamic between Jeremy Renner's Clint Barton and Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop. Their dynamic is fantastic. They were so fun to watch. I like the action sequences, and I like that we finally get to explore more of Clint's time as Ronin, and so as deal with these characters in this state, especially post-Avengers Endgame. And just adding to that fact, you just see Kate Bishop learn how to be a confident person, and she becomes the protege of Hawkeye himself. There's a lot about the show I really like, and there are some fun mysteries about the show that worked well, especially introducing Yelena Belova following Black Widow. However, this is the most rushed show out of the bunch. By the fourth episode, you had so many storylines with Yelena being introduced, and then you had the Ronin storyline that still had to be resolved. You had everything with Echo, and then you had Fisk, and there was a lot happening within the show that I feel like if it was given more episodes, it could have fleshed things out a lot better, because the highs of the show are really high, but then it also has some pretty low lows as well. And it disappoints me to say that because I really enjoyed this show. I had such a fun time with it week to week. But I did not think I was quite on board with the idea of making Fisk your mystery villain. And I wish they had it just right from the get-go. Fisk is your main villain, so that there's more tension for the show that, okay, now we know who the big bad is and why Clint and Kate must stop him and the tracksuit mafia. And so is how they handled Echo's character growth in that finale. That was worth episodes all on its own. There's a lot going on. Not everything gets developed as well as it could have, and I do feel like it tries to do a lot more than it could handle in 6 episodes. And if you were to ask me which of the shows I would give more episodes to out of all the shows that only had 6 episodes, it would be Hawkeye. But as a whole, I had a fun time with the show. I really liked it. While I have my issues with it, I still had a fun time with Hawkeye, and I'm really curious to know what the MCU has next for both Clint Barton and Kate Bishop. In 5th place is WandaVision. The one that started it all. This was one of the most entertaining Marvel Disney Plus shows, and this is one of the most interesting ones out of the bunch. It has a very interesting start, and I love the sitcom aspects with how each episode explores a different decade of comedy sitcoms with The Dick Van Dyke Show, and so has Modern Family, and a lot of that. I love the sitcom stuff a lot as someone who really likes watching comedy shows, and the performances from Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany were fantastic, and so as the mystery, where the show did a really good job at setting up a mystery where you're wondering, how is this happening? What is all of this? Who caused this? What's Wanda doing? There's a lot of intrigue here that I really liked. It's really funny. There's some really fun moments. I love the production and the visual design put into the show. And there are some really great ideas throughout, and this was one of the most creative shows so far, where every week people were talking about the show, and I really had a blast with all of that, and so is what they do with Wanda Maximoff as a character, especially leading into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. However, as time goes on, I dislike the sword storyline a lot more. While I really liked Jimmy Woo, Darcy, and Monica Rambeau, I just didn't care for all the sword stuff because it feels like we went from being something so unique and new and fresh to back to stuff we typically get from the MCU. I didn't like Hayward. I didn't really like what they were trying to do with the character. And it was odd to me that it looks like they were trying to set up Wanda to be this threat, especially as she's the one that created the Hex. And then they decide to scrap that and make Agatha your main villain and all that stuff in the finale. Wasn't really a satisfying conclusion. You had big CG fights and things were left unexplained and characters just came and went despite how important they were on the show. And as a whole, the finale was really disappointing because the rest of the show was so great beforehand. And it's a show where the mystery was so good and so interesting. You had a lot of exciting things week to week where there's a lot of intrigue and potential that really had some of the highest highs to come out of the MCU Disney Plus shows, but you also had lower lows where it really prevents the show from being higher up on the list because of how the finale played out. So while I love what they did with Wanda and Vision and the characters and the comedy sitcom and the production, and so as how unique it was to kick off Phase 4 of the MCU, the ending really prevents the show from being even greater than it was. In 4th place is Miss Marvel. I had some worries heading into the show because of the whole power change thing, which I wasn't entirely on board with, but I was really surprised by the show. Iman Vellani is fantastic as Kamala Khan. She is to Kamala like Robert Downey Jr. is to Iron Man. She is perfect casting. She's charming. She's fun to watch. And I love how she plays off of all these other characters, and she really embodies the nerd and so as the fangirl and the superhero within her. I loved her a lot. And I really liked how creative the show is, especially with its displays of text messages and transitions and the filmmaking, and so as the visual effects and the characters, and so as how she fits into the wider MCU as she is like this big Avengers super fan. And I really like that a lot. It had a really great start with those first 3 episodes, and it has one of the better finales for an MCU Disney Plus show. And it disappoints me that I couldn't put it even higher because I really do not like the clandestines on the show. I thought they were terrible villains. Their motivations constantly change, and I just could not connect with what they want to accomplish, where they want to use Kamala's powers to just go home. So it's like, we need her alive, but then the next episode they're trying to kill her. And the next episode they're back to just, we want her alive. It just makes no sense to me. And there's so many things about them that just really rolls my eyes and has my head scratching. And I really did not think moving the show from Jersey City to Pakistan was the best idea. That feels like something that could have been a whole other season, because it feels like we shifted from the street level aspect of those first 3 episodes to now we're a globe-trotting adventure, and that just wasn't quite the best idea for this show. And episode 5 of Miss Marvel is easily one of my least favorite episodes to come out of one of the Disney Plus shows. I thought it was just very poor in terms of how it resolved the storyline with the clandestines. So everything involving Kamala and Jersey City and her friends and the damage control stuff, love it. The Pakistan, the clandestine storyline, was not a fan of it. And it results in a show where I loved it, had a lot of fun with it, and I want to see more of Kamala, which we will in the Marvels. But if the villains were better, I could have had this on the top 3. Kicking off the top 3 is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This is one of the MCU shows that really had me engaged the most. I love Bucky and Sam in the MCU. I love the Captain America franchise. I love all 3 of the Cap movies. So I was really excited for a show about Bucky and Sam set after the events of Endgame. And we follow Bucky and Sam as they go on a globe-trotting adventure. And so as Sam learned, he needs to be the one to pick up the Captain America shield. And the end result is a show that I still love. I still love a lot about the show, from the action sequences to the production design. And so as the fantastic dynamic between Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan, they were fun to watch. And I really like that it really makes these characters actual characters. It develops them a lot more. And so as seeing them do very human things like fixing a boat together. And there's a lot about that I really appreciate. I love the Isaiah Bradley storyline. I thought that was terrific. And I really liked Zemo on the show. I love Daniel Bruhl as his character, so it was fun to see him return as Zemo for this storyline. And seeing the finale where Sam Wilson officially becomes Captain America, it's absolutely satisfying. I love his suit. I love what they do with him, and it makes me even more excited for when we get Captain America New World Order. However, I do think that the Flag Smashers were some of the worst villains to come out of the MCU, similar to how I felt with the Clandestines and Miss Marvel. I thought for characters like them, it's odd the writers are trying to have us sympathize for the Flag Smashers despite them being terrorists, and how they went from being, oh, we don't want to hurt people, to they blow up a building and they kill a bunch of people, to killing Lamar, yet it's like, no, they're trying to pose them as they're not bad guys. And I can't buy it. You're terrorists. You kill people. You're trying to do all these things. It's just, no. And that stinks, because if the villains were a lot better, then this could maybe even be my number 1 favorite. But I had to hold it back for that specific reason. And I'm very indifferent on what they do with Sharon Carter as the power broker. It feels like a really big leap that they went from having her be who she was in the Captain America movies, and all of a sudden she's like the power broker, where I get so many years have gone by since Civil War, but it just feels odd that this character changed that much in that time frame. So I'm not at all a fan of the Flag Smashers on the show, but I'm also very indifferent on Sharon as the power broker the more I thought about it. But as a whole, I love what they do with Sam. I love the dynamic between Bucky and Sam. This is really entertaining to watch for me as someone who loves the Captain America series. And so I had a lot of fun with the show, and it really delivers seeing Sam Wilson officially become Captain America. In second place is Moon Knight. Oscar Isaac is a phenomenal actor, and I really liked him a lot as the character of Moon Knight. I think that it's a very interesting show. I love the standalone nature where it doesn't rely on a lot of these other projects for you to follow along with. It has a very interesting start where we follow Stephen Grant, who's just living his life, and weird flashes and things are happening to him for whatever reason. We don't know exactly what's happening with him yet. And so as him going on this mystery with Arthur Harrow, and so as the Egyptian gods and whatnot. I love history, and so I like learning about mythology, and I really liked how they're able to place it within the show and utilize it. And Oscar Isaac is phenomenal on the show, and there are episodes here that I loved, and it was a very entertaining watch for me. I like the action sequences and the characters. And so as this little story, the psychological thriller show they had out of Moon Knight. However, it also suffers from what I've said about the other shows, where the finale was rushed, where I was really liking the previous 5 episodes, but I thought the finale was the weakest of the bunch because I was not too satisfied with the way they resolved the conflict between Moon Knight and Arthur Harrow. I would have liked to have seen more of Moon Knight being Moon Knight, and so as the direction they went in can be a little bit supernatural. But as a whole, I really dug the show. I think out of the 3, it's probably my favorite of the Marvel Disney Plus shows this year, the more I think about it. Where even if it's a very unfaithful adaptation of Moon Knight, I liked how they're able to translate it for the MCU for the most part. So I really liked Moon Knight. I hope we get a season 2, and I wonder what we're going to see with this character going forward in the franchise. So in second place is Moon Knight. But coming in at first place is Loki. It's been a whole year since Loki came out, and it still remains undefeated. I love Tom Hiddleston as Loki, and so as Owen Wilson as Mobius. I love their dynamic they have with one another. This is one of the best looking Disney Plus shows in general. And I love the mystery where we see that, oh, there's a variant of Loki out there killing members of the TVA, and they're trying to keep the timeline and reality in check. And so as a lot of these mysteries that are being placed, like who's running the TVA, who are the timekeepers, who is Sylvie, and so as just a lot of these things. It's such an interesting show to me. I love the cast dynamics. I really like a lot of the things they do, where even in episode 5, where we had a lot of variants of Loki, they even perfectly adapted the comic book Loki suit. And so has that great finale, which still has my favorite finale of all the Marvel Disney Plus shows, where we finally meet Jonathan Majors as He Who Remains, as we find out he is the one who's responsible for everything that's happened on the show. And it really changes the way you look at the MCU. And it makes me so excited to see Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror throughout the MCU, as he's going to be in Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania, and so as the overarching villain of the franchise going forward, because he's Kang the Conqueror. He's a villain I've been wanting to see for ages, and He Who Remains was a great way to set up all of that going forward. And I like the action sequences. I like the dynamic with the characters. I thought that part is fantastic, and so as the mystery. It's the best when it comes to the mystery, and it delivers it the best out of all the shows. And this has the most high highs out of all the shows thus far for me. And I am so excited for Loki season 2 to come out next year, because I loved the first season of the show, and I cannot wait to see more adventures of Loki, especially the fallout where the multiverse has gone into chaos, and now Mobius doesn't remember Loki, and that Kang is now in control. I am so pumped to see where the show goes from here. This is a fantastic show. Easily the best of Marvel Disney Plus's shows to me. So therefore, it comes in at number 1. That's my ranking of all 8 Marvel Disney Plus shows from least favorite to my favorite. Let me know your ranking down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear it. Stay tuned for my Season 1 review of The Lord of the Rings of Power, which should be coming up real soon. So please go stay tuned for that. And don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below. So please go do that while you're at it. And thank you guys so much for watching. And don't forget to hit that like button and the subscribe button. And stay tuned for more.